Welcome to Life at a Glance podcast. We have so much to talk about today. I've got to catch you up on Bessie, introduce you to Deb, and then we have the topic for today's episode. So let's dive right in. Bessie is doing well. Don't you even worry about it. She is running like a top, and so I think all is right with the world. And now I'm going to introduce you to Deb. So let's just talk a little bit about it. I know you don't know. So that's why I'm going to tell you our cars that we have had. Number one, we pay cash for our cars. And Bessie is a 2001 and Subi is I think she's either a 2003, 2006. Y'all, it's 2025. So you can do the homeschool math there. And we have cars, like we drive the wheels off of our cars. So the idea and the overwhelm around searching for a new car in today's environment is completely different. So I really felt like I had armed myself with years to avoid, types, models, and things that we were looking for, and kind of what our budget was as well, and kind of thinking into how long are we going to use this car for. So like so many things. And so several months ago, there is a used Subaru dealership here in the town where we live in. And we met the owner. It was on a Saturday and we test drove a couple. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I guess the whole thing with Bessie just really was like, and even Maggie said, yeah, Mom, it's past time. And so we were pretty intent on kind of our game plan and what we wanted to do. And so we found a Subaru at this lot and we went in to test drive that particular Subaru. And we were in it and I was like, no, this isn't it. There are too many things. I mean, there are always little quirks and things with used cars, but there were too many things with this one. And so it just so happened that like we passed by this other car and I'm like, what about that? And it actually has a peppier engine in it. And so we took it for a test drive. We liked the interior. We liked all of the things about it. We looked, years to avoid, all of those things. It was in our price range. And we're like, oh my gosh, are we going to do this? And again, I'll tell you, when I make big decisions like that, when Daniel and I make big decisions, I will drag my feet. We did it, y'all. We bought, and Maggie named her Deb. And I feel so fancy. It's funny. It's funny. I mean, when I tell you a 2001 vehicle and a whatever the other Subi is, like I've got a backup camera. I have a CarPlay. In this particular year, they had problems with the radios, so we already have had the radio exchanged. It's funny, when we bought it, they were just really pushing me, and they're like, "What do you want?" And I was like, I want the new radio and I need 4 new tires. And so I like spoke my piece. Never, unless you would have pushed me, would I have ever been so bold to say that. I'm just not a confrontational person. And so we picked her up and I've washed her, I've detailed her even more, and I am in love. And it's funny how like I don't take anything about the car for granted. And feeling the fancy and having the nice and enjoying the ride. And so, Bessie had Flo. So Flo is the hula girl. And now Deb, I think I'm just going to call her Deb. She is a different version of the hula girl. And she's already in the car. So we are so excited. I'm like holding my breath. I'm like, please, like nothing bad happened. And just really enjoying her. So there's Deb. I've caught you up to date. And now we're going to kind of transition into today's episode, which is really an extension from the email sent out to my members. And it's all around focusing just on one thing. And I think there are reasons why it's very, very hard for us to focus just on one thing. I can probably count on one hand the number of things that I have done consistently, either as a mom or married to Daniel. So Daniel and I have been married 32 years this year. And I've been a mother for 23, 24 years. And one of the most consistent things that we ever did was the chore chart that we did with the kids. Like hands down, like if you ask anyone in my family, that's going to be one of the things that has been most consistent. In my other business that I sold, the children's consignment sale, it was the most consistent thing because it was the same thing every 6 months. And so the only thing that really changed around that were just the evolution of the systems that would support it as that event grew to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think now, and I've said this as kind of like a side where, hustle is not a flex. And like working until wee hours of the night is not necessarily a flex. If you think about it, and this has been a challenge for me over the years because I have hustled and I have worked the long hours. So the flex is really being able to generate the same either revenue or consistency with streamlined operations, like hands down. Like, in this case, less is more. And I think this whole idea of multitasking, even though my email is multitasking, um, that myth really does slow you down. And I think it has really, that's led me to the priority framework. And the priority framework is that in the multitasking, we're carrying everything in our heads. And we get to the end of our days, we get to the end of our week, end of our month, and we're no longer further along. But by gosh, that mind trash that's going on, because we've done so much stuff. Why am I not further along on the other side? We beat ourselves up so much because we have done so much. And the idea of picking up and trying something new feels exhausting because we're not focusing on the right things. And I think almost that science behind decision fatigue, the idea that we're making 35,000 decisions each and every day. I've had several episodes about it where I've talked about just that one morning when I woke up and like the first thing on my morning routine is to get my coffee. And I had 7 different interruptions. It was text, it was dogs, it was Daniel, it was the contractors before I could even get there. And all of those little micro decisions just exhaust you literally by the end of the day. I want to, in focusing on the one thing, I want to really focus on the power of small wins and momentum. So I am in a phase right now where I run my dashboard, my ads dashboard. I have 2 different ads coaches, Victor Vento and Laura Portier. And I feel like they do 2 very different things. And I am working specifically with Laurel in scaling my ads. And I think in the past, my idea, I use the same ad, I've used the same copy. I will change out sometimes the testimonials and the same audience. And to scale would be just to add more money, duplicate, add more money. That's not scaling. That is not scaling. We are just, I haven't even cracked the surface, but it is so delicious right now, the power of small wins. Literally, her scaling method is $10 campaigns, just testing different audiences and testing different ads in terms of angles, and not even like same copy and switching. So I actually got angry about it because I was just so bogged down and, just wanting to do it right and all the things. I finished it up, shut the computer, and just ran out of the house. And then something amazing happened, like sales started popping off. And I couldn't believe it. And what that power of that small win, that was like a dopamine, but it was also like, oh my gosh, it was breathing new life into a template that over 8,000 people have purchased. And the focus on different lists and categories inside of the template. And like, we can go further here. We can talk about this. And I use it every day. So the things that I use every day, I kind of get used to it and I don't think that much of it. But that's the power. That is the power of getting your customer a small win. When something comes so easy and natural to you, and to them, it solves that biggest pain point. And I think as business owners, it is our job, and this is where I really like have a lot of fun, is taking a big, overwhelming problem and I will throw out a solution. But the goal is every iteration, it's better and better and better. And if the goal is to solve the biggest problem 10 minutes or less. And I literally use the system that I did with my kids when we first started homeschooling and looking at the buckets, even like the children that could not read, they needed to be able to look in the bucket and all of those pieces and parts were there that they could solve the problem and go and implement. I don't always get it right. And in the beginning, typically it's several iterations to get it to like, ooh, really good. And it works. Step 1, step 2, step 3, do it. And but that's the gift. That is the gift. And the psychology, if you think about of small wins, is that it's that dopamine and it's that encouragement. And not only like dopamine and encouragement for me and people purchasing based on the new ads that we have put out into the world, but it is also, it just breathes new life and creativity. And those small wins are encouraging. You're on the right path. Keep doing more of that. And so I think that I'll just end everything with how to implement just a one thing method. Part of the priority framework is literally just that 10 minutes on the timer, the sticky note, the marker, and it is just downloading all of the things that you are thinking about. I did a live stream this week. Oh my gosh, I have not done a live stream on YouTube in years, and I was so nervous about it because the tech, of course, something's going to go wrong if I'm not used to it. Like we hop on Zoom all the time. But so what was funny about that, Rocket, Daniel's little blue heeler, little cattle dog, he's protecting because the contractors are all around the house. And every so often he would start barking. And I'm like, well, it's me and it's real and we're live. And so I even had to like completely get up and get Rocket one time. But the download of all of the things, and that's what I was demonstrating in the live stream this week, of all of the really big pockets of business, they're all focused and centered around just one thing. Asking yourself that qualifying question, what's your revenue generating activity? Or, if you do this, it will result in revenue. What's your money making task? And we all think that we have to do all of the things. You don't have to do all of the things. There is one thing, even if it is a penny more than all of the other things, that is the winner. That is where we double down. Because what I've discovered this week and what I've really been fighting for in terms of consistency, business almost came to a halt when I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take back over my ads dashboard. And within 90 days, we were generating about $20,000 in sales. So I was really happy with that. But it was the same ad and it was the same copy. And then there was problems with the tech. And so then we took about 30 days, a very scary move for me when it came to moving tech. And now like we've made that transition and the numbers, this is probably the first time in 6 years, the numbers have been what the numbers have been. And I can actually tell what they are without adding a new piece. But it's the same offer. It's the same, like I cannot believe how consistent I have been around just one thing. And relaunched the membership, and it's undergone, I'm gonna be honest, it's undergone many iterations. I don't just do something once and then just let it just wane on the vine, just drizzle. I can't do that because I'm always inspired in new ways to support my customer. And so I think that I can call it just the one thing method, but it really is the priority framework. It really is focusing on the one thing. And for me, just looking at it, there are so many things I can do with the one thing or need to be done. Like, it's where I'm going to live. I will not deviate. I will not leave. I will not move. I will not change. And you're like, all right, mark my words. But in all honesty, when I've deviated, when I've changed, when I've tried to do something different, I always come back to this. And it's kind of like that old wise tale, right? It's like, where I started is where it's like, that's the thing. And so I guess the big takeaway from today's episode is just encouraging you that the hardest thing that you do in your business is to be consistent. The hardest thing that you can do in your business is that we feel if we focus just on one thing that we're going to lose out on so much. The other thing about focusing on one thing, or I'm going to get bored, or I'm not going to have enough to do. And I find myself sabotaging like what's working until I really stop and pull back and go, you know what? I don't have to worry about ad spend today. I don't have to worry about software today. I don't have to worry about blah, 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 blah. And I literally can close the laptop and I can go off and do other things. And people would always question me, well, what do you do if you work 3 days a week? What do you do with the other 4? There's plenty to do, especially in my house with a tree through it. There's plenty of things. And I think that, as business owners, like, we could work 24/7, but there are more dimensions to us. And I certainly don't want to miss those other things in my life because I had my head buried in my laptop. And that's why, to be honest with you, I work so hard in creating the solutions and making sure the things that I offer inside of my memberships, that they will allow my customers to do the same. And so that's what I got for you today, focusing on the one thing. And by doing it is you're being more effective rather than being busy. And keying on just one task is so much easier than doing all of the tasks. And that creates such a power of the small wins and the momentum. And then that one thing method, which is my priority framework, is literally, there are so many things that could be optimized around just the one thing that you're doing, whether that is the social media content that you're putting out, the ads that you're testing, the fulfillment process, making it easier for your customer. That template has gone through probably, I don't even know what version. I think we're on version 5. Not necessarily version 5 of the template itself, although I've added more categories. I've doubled the number of categories that used to be there. But it literally now, and based on the software that we use, right? It's literally 2 steps and you're in it and can start doing it and can start implementing. And so the easier that you solve the problem, you're going to win in your category, in your niche, hands down, every single day. Until next week, take care. Focus on the one thing. We'll talk soon.